3.
Welcome back to the Stu Simpson Show. We've got something a little different for you today. Dan Jarvis, who got me onto the Camino de Santiago in the first place, interviewed me for his show, Camino Tips by Dan Jarvis. It's wonderful. So here is how it went. It's about me as an ADHDer on the Camino de Santiago. Hello, Dan. We eventually got it sorted. It's just taken a while.
Stu, could you tell me maybe a bit about yourself and how you came to find out about the Camino?
I'm Stu Simpson. I'm a 44-year-old man, originally from Newcastle. I'm a film extra, and I first found out about the Camino via the film The Way, like a lot of people did. The film with Michael Sheen? Martin Sheen. Yeah. Emilio's dad. And it was a wonderful film. I watched it about 10, maybe 15 years or whenever it came out on DVD, and I just loved the thing, and I thought, that looks incredible. And then I thought, that's 530 miles, are you mad? And I just dismissed the idea entirely. And then I was working on Marengo, which is coming out this year. NDA, oops. So you can bleep that bit out if you want to. And then I met you, and I was sat on a tube, and we're just talking. I was telling about my podcast, and this season was about spirituality. And then you started talking about the Camino. I was like, oh, I watched this movie. I wanted to do it, but it looks ridiculous. And then we just got talking. Then you came on the podcast in a couple of days. Well, actually, the day after we did the podcast, I started seeing Camino signs everywhere. So, like, I was in my bathroom, and I looked down in this bathroom that we had fitted as a scallop shell. I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. The day after that, I was in Stratford in the shopping centre. I saw yellow arrows everywhere, and I'm like, okay, this is getting bizarre. And the third day, on the way to set, I saw an actual street sign that said Pilgrim's Way. So, like, 3 signs. That was pretty much it. It was like the universe is telling me to go and do this thing.
Got to follow the signs. And when I did get to know you on the filming of Marengo, you were very kind of open about maybe some of your struggles and some of the things that you were having to deal with that maybe other people didn't deal with. And you know, I felt very honored that you kind of shared with me that, you know, you had ADHD and were having to kind of wrestle with that whilst we were filming. For those people that don't know, if you feel comfortable, could you tell us a bit about what ADHD is and how you came to know that that is something that you had?
But I was diagnosed late at 43, and I always felt, for some reason, different. I always felt something was not right, and I got diagnosed about 10 years before that, maybe a long time before that, with mild Tourette syndrome. So occasionally when I get too stressed, then I start ticking and twitching, and on Marengo, just basically, if I'm really tired, if I'm stressed out, if there's too much sort of visual or audio stimulation, then my brain kind of just goes into overdrive and I can't focus at all. And so, because there's an awful lot of like thoughts happening very quickly in my head all the time, from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to sleep. So it interrupts a lot of different things, everything basically in my life. It's impacted every single aspect of my life. So I didn't know that I had a learning difficulty because of the ADHD, and I'd put in more effort at school than the majority of my friends, and they'd all get better grades than I would, and I'd be spending hours and hours revising. But that sort of, all the information just didn't stick, but I understood that during the lesson, and then I'd go home and it'd be gone. So there's things like that. It makes life really difficult. So when we were doing boot camp for this film, and you're having to learn a set of steps to learn how to march, for example, for most people it's straightforward. You're basically just 1, 2, 3. For me, I have to do it again and again and again and again and again until I'm not even thinking about it. It's that side of ADHD which is a difficult thing to manage. But even now, I've forgotten the question.
Don't worry. Just for people who are listening, just to give a bit more clarity, Marengo, I think it was the working title for Ridley Scott's new film about Napoleon, where
Yes.
myself and Stuart dressed up as Revolutionary Guards and went to a pre-filming boot camp for 2 weeks where we were shouted at and taught to march up and down with
Mm.
rifles and moaned at when the rifles got too heavy and the costumes were too itchy. So
Yeah.
taking all that on board, did that make you think twice about potentially walking a Camino? Did it make you worried about the communal aspects, perhaps, or other aspects that maybe I've not thought about of the Camino?
I was petrified, to be honest. From it's this. I really wanted to go and do it. I had this feeling that it's something that I have to do, and if I don't do it, then I will regret for the rest of my life not doing it, and it will keep bothering me until I go and do it. And but I was worried about going to albergues, and my worries became true. It was something that I had to learn to deal with, because I was worried about meeting new people. So basically, I worried about meeting new people, and about having a meal and everybody talking at the same time, because that's quite a difficult thing, with having attention deficit disorder. It's not necessarily about volume. It's about too many things coming at me at the same time, and I can't consult. Basically, my brain is trying to concentrate on the conversation that I'm having with the person who's talking to me, but there's no filter, so I can't differentiate between our conversation and the conversation which is happening with this person and that person and the thing that they're saying. So so my brain's trying to take in everything all at the same time. I'm so worried about being overwhelmed by that on a daily basis. But I found out there was a chance to decompress while doing the walking. So it was interesting that I kind of, after having those really intense things, and then also not getting enough sleep because of part of the ADHD, actually one of the most important things is trying to get as much sleep as possible. In an albergue with people snoring, it's not very possible. So as time went on, I kind of got a little bit more and more crackers. The freedom that sort of being able to just be entirely myself, which I don't get in real life, I suppose, when I'm not on Camino, because I have to mask on a daily basis to present to the world like I'm neurotypical, because that's the only way that you can get on, make money, be a part of the system, and it's exhausting. But on the Camino, you can just entirely, for me, I could entirely be me, and also just tell people, go, look, if I'm starting to get a bit weird, it's because I've got ADHD and it's because I've got Tourette syndrome. If I start ticking, it's because everything is just a bit too much. And people are on the Camino were so understanding, and I met this guy called Andre, and he became like my bodyguard sort of, and he really kind of protected me. So basically, like, Stu, you need to go sleep. You need to go now. Stop drinking. Go away. So the Camino for me provided everything that I needed, and also an awful lot of stuff which I didn't want.
I was going to ask you about kind of the tangible benefits of walking and Camino, but it feels like that you've kind of dipped into those, about kind of acceptance, about not having to have that mask on that you do in everyday society. Are there any other things that maybe you haven't thought about that are benefits for people who, apologies if I word this incorrectly, who are neurodivergent?
No, that's perfect. Well, one of the benefits I found from it, which I didn't understand until I'd walked the Camino, was that to manage ADHD better, you should get exercise on a daily basis, and that helps. So, because I don't medicate, because of my job as a singer-songwriter and a musician and an artist, the ADHD is a very important part of my creative process. But it's a double-edged sword, because it's exhausting, but it's just something which I need to make my artwork, and something I need to be able to tap into, something that most people don't have access to. But on Camino, what was the question again?
Just about, are there any other benefits?
I've got it, yeah. So the benefit, I have to regulate my dopamine properly. So that's the problem with a lot of ADHD. Is basically it's not that we don't have enough dopamine; it's that the receptors in our brain don't regulate dopamine efficiently. So the regular exercise on a daily basis keeps it regulated, keeps the dopamine on a good level. Um, but sometimes you can push it too far. Sometimes you're not doing enough. And like recently, I've had this had COVID, and also I was walking the dog and trying to keep my daily walk up because I wasn't doing it before the Camino, but in the run up to doing the Camino, I did lots of training, and all of a sudden my symptoms were getting better, and I was dealing with my ADHD better. And I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I wasn't expecting it to have this effect. And then on Camino, as like I said, I got a little with the lack of sleep, things started getting a little bit more crazy, so to speak. But also the exercise in itself was helping me deal with that craziness a little bit better, a little bit more. I was just able to accept who I am because of it. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I've had anxiety on and off for quite a long period of time. And I remember recently when I walked the Camino Baztan, and after a couple of hours of a long slog up this kind of never-ending hill, I just felt this internal calmness. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, if every day could be this calm and quiet in me, this is, this is amazing. And this is why I walk kind of Caminos. Obviously, you have the community aspect, but that kind of perpetual motion throughout your day, to kind of putting in 4 to 6 to 7 to 8 hours walking every day, it just, I don't know, it clears the cupboards out. It just blows the cobwebs out and makes me feel amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was walking. I always forgot the names of the places as part of the ADHD thing, so I'd make up names. Like I was talking to somebody, it might be a mutual pilgrim actually, who you might be put me in touch with, and they're walking at the moment. And
Oh,
she's
Wendy.
yes,
Yes.
um, and she's in, as I recall, she's in Hannah Montana today. But
Montanus, yeah.
that's the one. That side of things always just amused me. But what was the question?
You were saying that Wendy had mentioned something as well, maybe about anxiety and walking.
Yeah, so I was walking up some mountain towards somewhere, and I couldn't remember the name of the place. And had this moment. There's a couple of movies which I've watched, which is The Way, and this German one which Andrea put me onto. Um, it's about a comedian. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I've read the
Um,
book.
yeah, that's like it's the same guy. I'll come back to that. And I was at the top of this mountain, and there was nobody in front of me, and there was nobody behind me, and I just had this absolute moment of calm where I was like, "Oh, I felt like I've been waiting for this moment," and because my mind never ever shuts up, it's a constant in a dialogue, um, and for about, it was 30 seconds. It felt like it went really quickly, but it was one of those. I don't know if you've ever had like a car accident where, or so something quite traumatic, things slow down and time becomes like almost non-existent, and it's like, so what could be really really like seconds can seem like months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, wow, well, time doesn't exist. And I was at the top of the mountain, and all of a sudden just that feeling of calm. I was like, I wish I had this all of the time, but I know that I don't have it. So that, but there could be something to do with the walking, like you say, and that constant motion. That all of a sudden your brain just goes, "This is how it should feel. This is how life should be. This is perfect." And everything else is nonsense.
It's addictive, and that's why I go back. And I think a lot of other, there are obviously other aspects like community and
Mm,
the kind of low cost of it, but to have that, if you could bottle that up and sell it, I suppose it's similar in a less sweaty way, unless you're walking in the summer, to the runner's high that
mm,
people pushing themselves, but it's just that the risk of sounding a bit like a hippie. It's that nirvana spot that you
yeah,
hit, and it's just ah, like a hot, relaxing bath. But you've got
yeah.
all your clothes on.
uh, uh, some of the research around sort of exercise and all that sort of stuff, it could be. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but it could be the fact that when you're doing that amount of, and you got adrenaline releasing, then and your dopamine's regulating, and you've got serotonin, then you could hit a part of your brain which releases dimethyltryptamine, which is basically DMT, which is in the pineal gland of your brain. So if you're up a mountain and you've got a lot less oxygen and you've been pushing yourself hard all day, you could be releasing dimethyltryptamine, which you can do through breathing methods as well, or taking magic mushrooms.
That's really interesting. And again, I'm not a scientist, but I think I listened to a podcast recently, and they said NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which is about kind of rapid eye movement. They said that walking sometimes actually creates an NLP-like state because you are looking ahead, you're looking down, you're looking left, you're looking right. So your eyes are making some of those NLP moves. But again, I've probably run roughshod over that kind of experiment, but that's what I've heard. So to kind of move forward, so if there is someone listening or watching that has ADHD or is neurodivergent in some other way, what advice would you give to them if they wanted to walk a Camino, if they maybe have those reservations? What if anything, could you say to maybe help them?
The thing that first came, when you mentioned that, the first thing that came to mind was be brave. That's the most difficult thing, is that you've got to just reach down into yourself, and because one of the difficult things with ADHD is that we crave routine, but the moment we get routine, it becomes too much, and then you no longer have the dopamine. But what I like about the Camino, and also the aspects of what we do as a job, acting wise, is it changes on a daily basis. So you actually have a routine. This is so some advice I can give is the fact that be reassured that you will have some sort of routine, but it'll be different every single day. So there'll be enough fun things for your brain to be stimulated by, and interesting people to meet and things to see and things to do, that you'll be stimulated enough to actually want to keep going. It's and that it just you will have no option to kind of to be stimulated by it, because it's constant, and if you keep walking, things will keep changing. The moment you stop and then it'll stay the same for a bit, and it's just about regulating it. And for one of the things which I do on a daily basis to help regulate my stuff is I do transcendental meditation twice a day, and the Wim Hof method, which is a breathing technique. So some of and you can also find spaces for yourself on the Camino when you're walking. You don't always have to be with people all the time, and it's that side of things which is also helpful. So you'll arrange to meet somebody who you meet along the way, like with me and Andre and Marta, and Rebecca. We always we say, "Oh, I might see you down at this albergue, or I'll catch you later. I just need a bit of space." And people are great like that on the Camino, and so ADHDers need to be reassured that people will not generally get in your face, and you can just tell people, I just need a moment, it's fine. And unlike real life, people are understanding because everybody's in the same boat. We're all kind of doing the same thing, and generally neurodivergence is much more talked about these days. So there's an awful lot of resources that people can go and sort of find out stuff about. But I can't speak for the other side of neurodivergence, because autism is quite different to ADHD. It's part of the same spectrum, but it is different. So autistic people will have different needs to ADHDers. I only say that because I've other members of my family who are autistic as well, and that again is a massive spectrum. So it'd be interesting to find out if you can find somebody else who's listening to your podcast or watching your podcast as well, to get an autistic point of view, because there will be other autistic people, and generally autistic and ADHDers will gravitate towards each other. But I found one guy on the Camino. The universe put us together, and he also had ADHD, because we just started talking and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've got ADHD," and he's like, "So do I." And the moment we found out, we unmasked, and it was honestly one of the best nights of my entire Camino, because we just bounced off each other constantly, and you could see, although the neurotypical people sitting around the table going, "Oh God, there's two of them now."
You also mentioned about sleep being a very important part. So would you, I know that may affect people's budgets because
Mhm.
sleeping in a dorm to a private room is a lot more expensive. But is that something that you would kind of recommend as well to have private rooms?
Balance it out, and depends on where your level. It's about your budget, like you say. And when things got a bit too much for me, I would go and have a private room with Andrea, because that shared the cost. So if you can find a friend on the Camino who helps sort of balance the cost out, I was really lucky in the sense that I met somebody who I got on like a house of even though he snores really badly.
Well, I got to take the rough with the smooth.
Exactly. I was like, I can one snorer or an entire room full of snorers. I can deal with, and I trust this guy, and I like his company, and all that sort of stuff. So, and it was, yeah, and he even said to me, "Look, you snore too." And I'm like, "I know. It's just one of their things." But there were a couple of occasions. There was an occasion actually in Santiago where I was like, "Right, it's the end of the journey," and there's a monastery, and you can book a sole room to yourself, and it was only like €15 for one night. And it was the end of the journey. And I was like, great,
Not
I
the
can,
one on
and
the outskirts of town.
yeah, that's the one.
I love that place. It's great.
It's so relaxing. There's nothing. They still got Wi-Fi as well. And it was wonderful because you can have that moment of solitude, and you can sleep in a room, and you can just recharge your batteries without anybody being around. So yeah, try and put it into your budget for those emergency days when you just need some alone time without anybody. If you can just, so I would say, but out of because I walked for 7 weeks in 2 days,
Hmm.
and out of those 7 weeks, I probably needed 4 to 5 days alone time, and so it wasn't a lot, but that's on an individual basis, and you can. It's much more scary going than it is when you're there. It's a kind of get into it.
The
That's the
unknown.
hard. Yeah.
I often talk to new pilgrims and before they go, and I see a lot of myself in that. I still get nervous before I go now. And that first night, I often book a private room just because I can get my stuff ready, I can collect my thoughts, I can get a good night's sleep. And then I know, even if I wake up anxious, as soon as I start walking, as half an hour in, that anxiety just burns off. And
Mm.
okay, I'm back to myself again now.
Yeah. It's interesting on my first day on the Camino, just within, like I said, within half an hour. It's just, and I'd never done a Camino before as an absolute newbie. It was just like, oh, this is what it is. And then, and interestingly, and then on that first day, it's those people who I'm still in touch with from the first day of walking, because I was walking very contemplatively, and I was using my walk at that point to calm my anxiety down and to calm my breathing down. And I met a guy called Tim and his friend Bruce, and Tim's got a back problem, so he's like, "You're walking slower than me," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is a meditation." It's just like it'll take the time it'll take, and my first day I decided just to go to Orison, where it's a short walk, and that was like a decompression and kind of just get used to the idea that I'm here. So mentally, my first day wasn't until I got to Orison, and then that's for me when the walking really began, and then
Mm.
so then it got to Roncesvalles and the story of the hat, and that's how because I started basically I met Andrea in Orison at the there's only the one place in Orison, isn't there? And in there you have this big communal meal, and that was the day I met Andrea and I met Debbie, and I met Tim and Bruce, and all these people, and they're the ones who've managed sort of pretty much to stay with me to this day. And tomorrow I'm off to Germany to catch up with my Camino family. So this is it's going to be basically all the German part of the family, which was most of them for some reason.
Just for kind of for helpful referencing for people, this may only be kind of applicable for people in the United Kingdom. But can I ask just kind of briefly, how you were diagnosed, how you were diagnosed. How did they know to diagnose
Mhm.
you? Was that something that you chased from kind of Googling, or could you?
Um, it started off as from TikTok, weirdly, because I just saw like there's just random videos kept popping up. I don't do TikTok anymore because it was just it's a very consuming thing, and now I know why. It's because of the ADHD. It's dopamine, hooray! So I saw some videos on TikTok, and I went, that's a bit odd because I do all of those things. It's a bit weird. And then I came across one which was by a doctor, or some sort of psychiatrist, and said if you're having problems with it, go to add.com and fill in this form, take this questionnaire. If you're interested, so I took the questionnaire and I got 100%. I went, oh god, that's not. And so at the end of it, it says, this does not confirm a diagnosis. You should go and speak to your doctor if you wish to. And I went, okay, that's interesting. I spoke to my partner, and then I went and he was, well, if you think it's going to make you feel better for any reason, you should do it. So I talked to the doctor, and this is the way I think personally that a diagnosis should go, because there's an awful lot of there's a Panorama program about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is a bit controversial. So basically, the problem with the NHS is that there's not enough funding, there's not enough money and there's an awful lot of diagnoses which are happening privately. So people are going, I can't wait 5 years for a diagnosis. It depends on where you are in the country. I was lucky the fact that I've got a residence in Cumbria, and there's a lot less people applying for diagnosis in Cumbria. I think it's something to do with something sociologically. It's a weird thing because basically down south people are much more open to interpreting issues. I'm not going to call them problems or struggles because I've got an issue with that. But up north, there's a much more kind of get on with it type of thing. I'm a bloke. I'm doing, and the men are blokes as well. it's tough. Just wipe it off and carry on, sort of thing. But I've been down south for quite a while. So I went to the doctor and I said, this could be a problem. And she said, I'll get back to you. I will look up what I need to do. And they went through a whole bunch of questionnaires, but that was just the doctor. And then the doctor said, it's looking very likely. I will get you in touch with Psychiatry UK and they will go through their process. And so their process is you get a date fixed, and then you miss the first appointment because you have ADHD. First box ticked. And eventually you got around to kind of luckily getting another appointment. And then they go through questionnaire after questionnaire, and then your partner fills in a questionnaire as well. And it should take months to get a real diagnosis because it's it's an in-depth thing. It shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be something that's just diagnosed in 20 minutes from a quick ticky box thing. And a lot of these private companies basically are just taking £600 to £1,000 off of people to get diagnosed in 20 minutes, and that doesn't really prove that you have got ADHD. So it's a very difficult and very long thing, and it should be taken very seriously because there are neurotypical people who are getting misdiagnosed and given very strong drugs. Like basically, what people take is generally amphetamine, and
Yeah.
yeah, it helps regulate things. For me, I know when I perform on stage quite often with my band Hayden's Union and by myself, and also a bit stand-up comedy, and I MC at festivals. And when I'm on stage, I'm calm. I'm the calmest that I am. When I meet people face to face, I get really anxious. It's basically the opposite of how things should be. What those drugs do is bring it up to where I would be when I'm on stage. So people take the drugs on a daily basis to feel like that. So if a neurotypical person is getting given speed on a daily basis, that's going to be really messing with their brains, and it's not a short diagnosis. It's not a short-term solution. It's something that people have to take every single day. And so there are big issues around that. So if you're going to go and get a diagnosis, you have to be patient. And I understand the problems with it, because your house can be a mess. You can miss appointments all the time. There's a thing called like the ADHD tax. So basically, you end up paying double because you end up forgetting to pay bills on time. So then companies will come chasing for you for things which you haven't paid, not because you don't want to, because you've forgotten that it's there, because you're not getting, your brain's not regulating anything, because it doesn't give you the dopamine. So it gets put on the back burner. You all get to it. So what the diagnosis can help with in the end is you can either get given money for drugs, or they can help provide applying for money for an ADHD coach. So an ADHD coach can teach you ways to deal with the ADHD better. So it's not basically, it's not somebody goes, here's a planner. It doesn't work. A wall planner is not the answer. And I still struggle with it on a daily basis. I mean, it's taken us 4 or 5 attempts just to get this interview done. So it's a very, and there's a reason. These are the reasons why it's classed as a disability, and and I'm still kind of coming to the terms of the fact that I was brought up in a household where my dad worked with children with disabilities. He was a residential childcare officer, and I was going to these get-togethers on a Thursday night. And I was actually finding myself much more comfortable in the company of disabled children than I was with neurotypical and so-called normal children. And it was never picked up on. It was never seen as like, well, oh, it's just a kid having fun, and he's just very empathetic. And having this late diagnosis, it's really interesting to kind of go, wow, I have to really readdress my entire life. And it's a process of grieving the person who you're told who you should be growing up, to the person who you go, no, that's not who you wanted me to be, who society was telling me that I should be. So I had this coming from all directions. It wasn't just to do with ADHD, it was to do with my sexuality. I was brought up a Catholic. It just goes on and on and on. And bringing it back to the Camino, it was a really good way to deal with the grief. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to walk the Camino. It was like I needed space after my diagnosis to deal with everything that I've been through up to that point, to deal with the fact that, one, I'm a gay man, two, that I'm neurodivergent, and if I hadn't been, then maybe I could have been financially successful in my career as a musician, if I was able to sort of to stick to being in this band or any sort of job. So because you end up having ADHD, you flip from job to job to job, because after a while, once you've learned what you need to do, it becomes actually kind of painful psychologically. For example, I used to work for a shop called Divertimenti in London, just down the road from Harrods. And within a week of doing the job, I was crying on the way to the tube, because I just knew that the day was going to feel like forever. And I was like, and it feels like, so you basically end up having emotional dysregulation as part of the ADHD thing, is that what would seem like a small problem to a neurotypical person is huge to somebody who's neurodivergent.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, I feel like crying every day I have to go into work, but
yeah.
Sorry, I'm not to lessen.
ADD. Check out ADD.com.
I think I probably need a new job, actually.
yeah, that could help as well.
Sorry to stop you mid-flow there.
That's all right. It's part of the thing. I can gabble on for hours, and that's where it'll go. ADHD stories will start at one point and then go there, and everywhere which way but loose.
I'm aware that we've only got a couple of minutes left. Yep. Just before we go, could you recommend, if anyone hasn't been diagnosed and would like to know more, do you have any websites, books, or people that you could recommend that they follow?
Yeah, there's ADD.com is a really good place.
ADD, 2 Ds, is it?
Yeah. So basically, ADHD, it was attention deficit disorder, but now that doesn't really exist clinically anymore. Everything is classed as ADHD now. So, but that website registered a long time ago. So ADD.com. Oh, there's a guy called Connor on Instagram. He's brilliant. He's funny, but he's really good. I can't remember his surname.
You maybe send me that link and I'll put
Yeah,
it in the show notes.
absolutely. And I would, for anybody who generally check out Transcendental Meditation. It's great for everybody. If you've got anxiety, anything at all around sort of neurodivergence, learning to, even if you feel like you're not doing very well at it, it's not the point. The fact that you got to, it's a regular thing that you can go to every day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and it helps give you some sort of structure that's really good. Anybody who's dealing with addiction issues, which can come up during ADHD because we end up coping in very unhealthy ways, check out the book Recovery by Russell Brand. It's it's great. That was very helpful. And the Wim Hof method is just wonderful because that helps release dopamine and serotonin, and it's really easy to do. Cold showers and a breathing technique. So these are things which I use on a daily basis.
That's great.
Those help.
Thank you so much for coming on to kind of Camino Hacks and Tips maiden voyage into the podcast world. I've learned a hell of a lot, and it's a journey I think I want to carry on and learn more of, and hopefully over time I can get to speak to more people and help other people out there who are maybe going through these things. So thanks, Stu, for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's a pleasure, and you're my first Camino angel. So you helped me go on the path. So I'm indebted to you for the rest of my life. So thank you.
Oh, honestly, there is no debt there, and if I'd happily talk to anyone and everyone who wants to go to the Camino, and I love helping people because I know what a benefit it was to me. So thank you.
Buen Camino.
Buen Camino, brother.
3